Hello, hello, and welcome. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong screen. Welcome back to Legalbytes. If you have been here before, and if you are new here, my name is Alita. I am a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. So if you've been here for a while, you probably are familiar with Kurt from Uncivil Law. But 100%, no one here, I'm sure, unless you went to law school with me, knows Mr. Marc Calderaro, who is a lawyer and a law school classmate of mine. So everybody give him a nice, warm welcome. So Marc, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and obviously you went to UT Law along with me, but other than that, what have you been up to?
Best years of my life, UT Law. I love it. And I'll speak nothing but high praise to everybody, any professors and administrators watching. Grew up in Jersey, did a bunch of different things. And I was one of the people who went to law school a little later in life. I worked for Magic the Gathering for about 13 years. I worked on environmental resources, doing pipeline construction and electrical line construction. And then I kind of went crazy and went to law school after working for South by Southwest and Fantastic Fest as film programmers and doing film stuff. And so after that, I went to LA and did that whole grind that, Alita, you're wonderfully familiar with.
Yep.
And so I worked at a couple different places, and latest was WWE. I was making reality television and doing law. And the old joke in the office was I would be the last one standing as long as the department existed. And then the ultimate joke was on me because they just closed the department. So, so I finished up. So now I'm finishing up all the creative stuff that you weren't really able to do while working 75-hour weeks through a pandemic. So, it's finishing up some legal TV shows, finishing up some games that I'm publishing, and that's about the deal.
Nice.
Takes me to now.
And so now you have a game that you have been also creating, kind of like Cards Against Humanity, called I Feel Attacked. So for everybody that can see it here, is it blurry? It's still, there it is. There we go. Which is a really, I still haven't had a chance to play it, but I've looked through some of the cards, and it's very fun.
Lame.
No, but
we have to play it on stream. You have to figure out how to do it, like I did with I Descent, where I'm just suddenly figuring out how to play the game.
Let's do it.
It's like, well, you don't have the cards or anything, but let me figure out how we're going to play this virtually with me only having the cards and things. This will be good.
You're making
kind of well.
You're making me flash back to the last 7 months of trying to develop marketing plans for an in-person social party game during the middle of a pandemic quarantine lockdown. So thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like my brother Andy, he's in the chat too. Hey Andy. He also developed a similar sort of card game, but his is a resource development game. And so we've had him on the channel too. And he talked about the same thing. He was like, my shipment came in March 2020. So that was perfectly not perfect.
I had the luxury of kind of developing my timeline on what I thought COVID would do or not do. That I was like, oh, by 2022, it'll be a perfect time to go to market, and maybe it will be, but
who knows? Who knows? Poor Everkeeper says, considering how offended people get nowadays, I feel that game will sell well. It could be. So what's the basis or the basic premise of the game?
The basic premise of the game is every card, as you're kind of thumbing through right now, starts with people who, and then has a characteristic or behavior that some people have. People who own white BMWs, people who
have vanity license plates.
Vanity license plates. People who don't hold the door for you.
If it helps when you do the card thing, you put your hand behind the cards so it makes it easier to focus on to focus on. Just pro tip.
I do actually feel attacked by this one.
Oh, people who have two computer monitors.
Yes.
I recognize that. Even though there we go.
Here.
Hand behind it.
There we go. I do actually feel a little bit attacked by that one because I love having. If I could have 16 monitors, I would.
Well, and kind of the trick with all of the cards is that they're all objective. None of these cards are actually passing any judgment. They are just traits that people have. But the trick is they are obviously traits that some of us tend to have internal biases about.
I like these two together. If I could do it. People who have truck nuts versus people who have the coexist bumper sticker.
So they're just, but and basically the game is one person picks a card from their hand and puts it down. Let's say people who wear chain wallets, right? And then everyone else looks in their hand and tries to find the card that they think are most likely also the same people. So maybe they might put down people who own reptiles, or, people who have been in a bar fight, or, whatever myriad things that you can come up with. And then that kind of rounds judge, try and figure out what is the most overlapping Venn diagram of humans. So as the commenter said, it's playing obviously in this judgy bias sphere. But it really asks you to question your own biases and the people around you, right? With your friends, if your friends make an association that's kind of like,
So basically, this is just everyone's a little bit racist, the game.
Sure. I think that it's a little. It is definitely developed more for family friendly than that. There are certainly.
Because when I think white BMWs, I think about the Jews.
Oh, jeez.
So, for example,
he's saying, by the way, completely.
That's not a card you will find in the game. This is and honestly, it is kind of tricky to engage in that sphere, right? But it is, they are very much cards that people might think they're coded, but they are very much designed to not be nationally coded. Right? Yeah. Like there are no dog whistles in here that everyone will read that dog whistle. No. You might if you have certain
say biases, that, but the ability of people to hear dog whistles appears unlimited.
Well, and that's kind of the fun, is discussing whether or not that is a dog whistle or isn't it. It's encouraged in the end, it's this game that it encourages those sort of social discussion of stuff that we all feel, but we all might not feel comfortable sharing it. And so it's this way to get people to share and discuss these things and talk about them in a way that, look, it's okay to feel attacked. I guarantee you are on 50 cards in that game, because so you can kind of attack your friend if you want, or your mom or your spouse, but like you're also going to get it back, and so that's, that was a lot of the developing of figuring out getting everybody in there,
I love it. People who show their dates YouTube videos. I feel like that was the start of me and Mr. Bites. And I'm also a little bit biased for this one because yes, everyone should show their dates YouTube videos, and it should be my videos.
I am too cheap for Netflix, so it's YouTube and chill for me, baby.
My father just discovered YouTube on the television, and so I've been here for the Christmas season, and so now we're like at night and we're watching like top 10 snake attack videos.
Well, let me just tell your father there's over 1,000 videos on my channel. I don't have the law, so plenty of content he might be interested
in. Yeah, so that's awesome. I'm very excited to play this game. And I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to Kickstarter March 1st. I'm sure you'll link all the things, but feelattacked.com and Linktree, I Feel Attacked. They're all there, and I'm making the presents. And I'll also be at basically every game convention you could imagine this year. So,
excellent.
So if you go to those, I'll be there.
Yeah, and all of that stuff is linked in the description below already. So if anybody wants to go and check that stuff out, you absolutely can. So, of course. So, and then people can also check out your Twitter. You have your personal Twitter, and then you have your game on Twitter. So if you want to yell at him about his legal opinions, maybe go to his personal Twitter.
That's fair. Yeah.
So in that vein, let's get talking about some of these absolutely 100% non-controversial topics. We've got Elizabeth Holmes, the verdict, and then we've got the oral arguments coming up for the vaccine mandates, and we have, of course, the Nirvana Baby, just to spice things up a little bit, just for some funsies.
And Nirvana Baby.
Oh yeah.
Mention.
Okay, yeah. So Kurt, let's talk about the new one, the late edition that you wanted to talk about?
Sure. So I don't know how long the discussion will be, but there's the trial of Chandler Halderson began last night. This is a relatively young guy. I forget his exact age, but he's late teens, early 20s. He's an adult. And he has been accused of murder of both of his parents and then mutilating their bodies by chopping them up into pieces, trying to burn them in his family's fireplace. And then when that didn't work, spreading them in their pieces in various parts of fields and ditches and so forth in Wisconsin. So, there's that.
When did this supposedly happen?
This happened July 3rd or July 1st. This happened July 1st of 2020.
Okay.
So this happened July 1st, 2020. So the background appears to be that he was basically just completely deceiving his parents about all kinds of things. That he had a job which he never had. He was going to be hired by SpaceX, which wasn't true. He was enrolled in a college which has never heard of him. And he has all these emails from like HR directors, but they're from like Proteon.com, the anonymous email account and stuff like that. So basically he's emailing himself and stuff like that. And they have his cell phone data, at the various times and at the various locations. And by the way, his mom texted him. So the cover story was that his mom and dad went away to a cabin or something they owned a couple hours away for various repairs. And the mom texted him. Unfortunately, the phone, that the mom's phone was found, in the house in a shoe, wrapped in aluminum foil in the garage. And also there was a phone of one of the people who, what was it? It was like one of the college directors or something like that. There was the phone of these text messages, and that phone was a burner phone that was found in his desk in his house, and
okay.
all that stuff. So they have cell phone data. They have eyewitnesses to some of this stuff, and all the rest of it. So they had the opening arguments yesterday. And basically, it's now let's play a game together. We can play a game together right now because let's play the game of Chandler Halderson is more fucked than. So here's my first entry. Chandler Halderson is more fucked than Jenny from Forrest Gump.
Oh,
what's your contribution to this? Because that's basically how the trial is going at this point.
Oh my gosh! Oh man! So it sounds like there's a lot of evidence.
It's a lot of evidence. It's a lot. It's a lot of things.
Okay.
I'm really interested to see how the defense attorneys deal with the tinfoil wrapped shoe. That one.
Okay. Well, let me just summarize the. Okay. Let me summarize. First of all, let me summarize the defense's entire opening argument, which was only 15 minutes long, which should tell you something. Okay, because the prosecution went on. It wasn't that bad. I don't know how long it was, like an hour or something, but I was engrossed for the entire time. The defense's opening was 15 minutes. It consisted of two parts, which I found both parts kind of hilarious. So part A was, members of the jury, you are members of the public, and as members of the public, you have feelings and emotions, and that's perfectly understandable. And when I went to law school, I learned how to reason and think, and so what I want you to do is I want you to put on that thinking hat and not so much with the emotion and reason and stuff. So I've translated what that was into what I want you, members of the jury, is to become dead inside like me. So that you too could stand up here and talk to you with something approaching a straight face, although even at that point she lost that, to be quite honest.
No.
So I want you, part A is I want you to burn off all your emotions and become dead inside like me. That's great. And then part number 2 is, have you heard about beyond a reasonable doubt? Have you heard about presumption of innocence? Let me tell you about presumption of innocence. Let me tell you about beyond a reasonable doubt. It's really important that you keep these things in mind. Have you heard about the Constitution? Let me tell you about the Constitution. Let me tell you, have you heard about reasonable doubt? Reasonable doubt is really, really good. So you should definitely have all the skepticism because, they're going to have some facts, and some of these facts we're not going to contest, incidentally. But hey, there's a gap in the timeline. There's a gap in the timeline because the murder could have occurred on July 1st, anywhere between 1 and 3, and they don't know when it occurred, and they might have some evidence of. They might have some evidence of disposal of the body, and they might have some evidence that puts him in place, but they don't have any evidence that he actually murdered his parents. Okay, that's great. So yeah, contribution number 2: Chandler Halderson is more fucked than a Filipina prostitute.
Oh Jesus! Okay, Kurt. Oh my God!
I was thinking of some of these things as we were talking. By the way.
So okay. So is this trial being live streamed?
Yeah.
By any chance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Apparently it's going to go on for three weeks or something, but I'm telling you, it's over.
3 weeks.
It's over.
Whenever you hear an opening argument from the defense that doesn't mention a single fact, it's
they're going to mention a whole bunch.
Not...
They're going to mention a whole bunch of things, and that could lead you to some conclusions. But I want you to think about the 300 other possible conclusions that could theoretically be. Basically, without saying it, I want you to just blatantly speculate into anything else. It could be other than what they say. Please speculate, because I won't be able to offer anything because I've got 0 things. But maybe if you wish hard enough.
So
I am. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Oh no! I was just thinking of what was that one defense attorney for one of the 1-6 protesters that they were saying like, hey, do you have any comment about how there's video evidence of your client doing this and your video evidence? And literally his response was, "I'm not a miracle worker." like when your defense attorney says to the public, "I'm not a miracle worker," like you're going to jail,
Yeah, that doesn't really show too much confidence in your client's case.
I can't help noticing you're not playing my game. Let me give you another one. Chandler Halderson is more fucked than Jack Murphy's woman.
Oh, I knew Jack Murphy was going to come up at some point. Oh, geez. But so, I mean, yeah, I'm always thinking about the attorney in these kinds of cases. Like, can you imagine, like, how did they agree to take on a case like that? Did they think like, all right, like, we don't really have much of a chance, but I'll give it my best college try, like, you're going to pay your fees, right? Just pay them on time.
I'm definitely going to want money on that one in advance.
I mean, look, somebody's got to do it, and obviously he's gonna be railroaded. Yeah. There's gonna be the most.
He's gonna be railroaded like.
No.
But like, and so look. I think a defense attorney's job is not always to prove that the client is innocent or make you not be able to prove that the client is innocent. But there are so many aspects of which cops or prosecutors or even a judge can really kind of take advantage of this disadvantageous position. And so look, that is, I mean, pardon me for playing the the defense attorney's bar here, but like that is a thing, and that is a real thing. And so you got to keep that out, and somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. I mean, that was my 1L summer, I interned at the Orange County Public Defender's Office. And I remember asking them, like, do you really feel like all of your clients are not guilty? Do you really feel like they didn't do that? And they're like, a lot of them probably are. But hey, it's our job to make sure that the prosecution doesn't overstep their bounds over their constitutional rights. So they say, we've just got to make the best argument that we possibly can and make sure that the court does what they're supposed to and that the prosecutor does what they're supposed to, and nothing more than that. So that's a very fair point, Mark.
If I will always defend as a like anti-authoritarian and anti-totalitarian, the defense bar is doing God's work, even if they're letting a bunch of murderers also roam our streets.
I'm not sure God could win this case.
That's a very fair point as well, because it is true that we really should.
God gave us free will. Remember, God gave us free will and the ability to defy him. So in quite a literal sense, I'm not sure God can win this case, because since he gave us free will, he gave us the free will to
No, God be a witness for the prosecution on this one.
Yeah, he does see all. Can you tell us why he's thinking? Yes, I can. How do you know? I'm God.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that is ongoing right now for the next few weeks. Then it sounds like. Are you covering it on your channel?
Well, I'll make a video about it today, probably at some point later today, just to make the I'll make all the jokes I will dream up between now and then, because you guys don't want to play with me. That's very sad.
So you can get your own channel taken off of YouTube instead of mine.
Mark, you're a game designer. Isn't it a lot more fun when people want to play games with you?
No, you're absolutely right. Honestly, my issue is I haven't come up with something good enough yet. I've been thinking about roaming dolphin gangs. There's a lot of stuff there, but I haven't quite nailed the punchline.
More fuck than a duck with a corkscrew dick?
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I'll jump in.
So yeah, probably won't be covering it that much because there's really nothing to cover.
Yeah,
it's like, we saw the opening arguments, and I'm like, well. All I want to know is at this point, is it possible for the jury to be like, at the end of the opening arguments, be like, Your Honor, we're ready with our verdict now? We're good.
I mean, look, the interest in this case, in following this case, is going to be, it's like when you listen to a true crime podcast, and like the first 2 episodes are incredible because they're just like laying out these endless facts that you're like, oh my God, these facts are great. And then after episode 2, it's like they just run out of facts and then they just start, whatever. So as long as this trial keeps giving us new facts, it'll be fun. Other than that, it's,
Awesome.
Wisconsin doesn't have the death penalty. That's the only thing that's going for this guy, and I have to say. So, well, like, they bring it back just for him.
Oh man.
How old was he, by the way?
Let me see if I can find out his exact age, because I know he was relatively young, late 20s, early 20s.
Okay, but he's an adult.
Early 20s. Yeah, let me see if I can find out his exact age. 23.
Okay, so there's no question of trying him as a minor. That's was my question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now that that's on my radar, I might cover that at some point as well. I mean, besides this conversation, obviously. What?
Legalbytes opposes fun.
I don't oppose fun.
Wow.
I'm 100% for fun. This is why I've now brought on 2 game makers onto my channel.
Alita feels attacked right now. I think
I do feel a little bit attacked.
Yeah.
But no, this is a very interesting case, and this guy is super screwed. It sounds like from the facts. So
go watch the opening arguments. Tell me I'm wrong.
I'll definitely have to go and watch them for sure, especially since they are actually on YouTube, which is unlike this next case that we're going to talk about, Elizabeth Holmes.
Good choice.
Do you like that?
Not on YouTube. Yeah.
So because of course this is federal court is never televised, unfortunately for our purposes. It's like they don't have any respect for YouTube lawyers, right? I mean, they don't understand what we're doing, what we're going through. Anyhow, so the Elizabeth Holmes trial came out with a verdict, and it was a mixed bag. So I don't know how many people were surprised about that, not surprised about that, but she's guilty. Well, I think the way in which it was a mixed bag is maybe a little bit less surprising for a lot of people, because as for fraud against investors, she was found guilty on pretty much all of the counts. It sounds like fraud against patients, not so much, and then a few no verdicts. So which will probably be declared a mistrial by the judge. So do you guys have any thoughts? Oh, it did. It was declared a mistrial.
Yeah, with respect to those counts, yes.
Okay. So what are your guys' thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, Elizabeth Holmes, for those of you who may not remember, was the founder and CEO of Theranos, which was purported to be a revolutionary biomedical company. Elizabeth Holmes was shilling that she and her company had developed new blood testing machines, which could use very small amounts of blood in the nature of drops to detect a whole panoply of diseases cheaper, faster, and more reliably than any of their competition. She started this company when she was 19. So she's a 19-year-old with no particular education or background or history, because, 19, but she can somehow develop a biotesting machine, biomedical machine, that's going to faster, cheaper, more reliably, and with less blood detect all the things that you can literally, this was literally an advertising campaign for a little bit. Literally, you can go to your CVS and just, prick your finger on the blood, and they will tell you, all the cancers and stuff you have. So basically, it is just literal snake oil. It's step right up, step right up. It's Elizabeth Holmes' magic elixir time. You, sir, you look like you need the magic elixir. Let me tell you about the magic elixir. It's just that. So anyways, yeah, she was found guilty of, as you say, of charges related, conspiracy to defraud, and then 3 specific underlying counts of wire fraud that were later in time. The no verdict case, the no verdicts were earlier in time. So she was being charged for various offenses, I think from 2010 to 2015. The no verdict ones were like 2013. 2015. So 2010 to 2015. So the no verdict ones were in 2013. The guilty ones were later in 2015. So it seems to be what I did on my channel is I'm trying to analyze this. It's like, how do you square all this logically, right? Because there's ways to square it not logically, right? Compromise verdicts and, whatever. So, but how do you square it logically? And I'm like, okay, well, the way to square that logically is that, she really believed what she was saying, and she didn't defraud at the beginning, and she was just overly optimistic and overly ambitious, but it didn't really amount to fraud. But at some point along the way, and we're not sure where,
things got out of hand.
There's the no verdict thing, right? We're not sure exactly where, but some point along the way, she knew she was defrauding, and she knew she was misrepresenting it. No longer was whatever. So we weren't sure at that point at 2013, but we're sure at 2015. I'm like, okay, I can buy that. And then with respect to the patient stuff, the way to square that logically is that perhaps it's just too attenuated. There's intermediate steps. There's too many intermediaries for the nature of the communications to the patients. So she's too proximately removed, if we want to use a legal term. She's too proximately removed from it to work. So these are potential ways to square this verdict. The other thing, now there's a question as to how much time she's facing. What I can tell you is that 3 of the counts are 20 years and 1 of the counts is 5 years. Now, I saw one guy's numbers online where he walked through the code and tried to square it. And according to his numbers, which look superficially right, but I am in no way saying are correct, but they looked superficially plausible. He came up with the idea that they would be consecutive because of the nature of the various offenses, and based on the category, when you total up all the points for things, you could actually get to a life sentence. So obviously 65 years is less than life. You can't do more than the statute, so 65. Crime Talk has said there's a max of 20 years and maybe less than that. So there's going to be obviously a massive dispute, as I'm sure we can all appreciate. 6?
You think 6 years?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
there's a massive dispute
because you're
over
right.
these things, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean,
go on, Marc.
those calculations are totally right. It's just taking into account her status, her like wunderkind kind of aura that she has, and also probably a judge not. One of the big things about this trial, right, is that you're kind of putting Silicon Valley on trial a little bit, because the counts that she was basically not found guilty for the most part, was all Silicon Valley blusterers and venture capitalists do, right? And so in a lot of ways, what people are going to try and use this is to read the tea leaves on where and when you have to actually start being more open with
I'll tell you what, if I'm a judge, I'm putting her up against the wall for kind of exactly that reason. Because it's like, well, Silicon Valley, maybe you've been pushing that boundary a little bit too much, and she went well over the boundary. So one of the things that we remember from law school, perhaps, is what is the point of punishment? Why do we punish people, right? And there's various theories as to why you do that, right? Mm-hmm. You're trying to isolate this person. You're trying to do retribution. You're trying to do various things. But one of the reasons we punish people is what we call general deterrence. We're trying to deter people in general from committing crimes. We're punishing you as an example to others, right? So yeah, maybe Silicon Valley needs to be whacked over the head a little bit. Also, not to put too fine a point on it, but she defrauded people out of millions of dollars. She was convicted of 140 million. More realistically, it's more like $1 billion of defraud. And
because that was how much she raised, right?
That's a lot of fraud. So Judge Uncivil Law is ready to nail her to the wall.
Well, and look, I agree with most of your assessment, and I feel that way for the most part. It's just that, I don't see people, stockholders in the SEC and those sort of SDNY cases nailing those people to the wall when they defraud people of 200 million and 300
and
million.
And isn't it about time someone did? Please make me a federal judge. I'd be the very best federal judge. I just like to point out that I'm available. And if you appoint me like right now and confirm me right now, and with a little bit of doodads behind the scenes, I can be the sentencing judge. I'll be the best sentencing judge. It'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, look, and that appeal that you did would certainly work on some, on certain, on like potential.
It'll be great because the United States say, "Why do you want to be a federal judge?" And my answer will be, "I want to whack Elizabeth Holmes over the head with the hammer of justice so hard that it makes everyone else's head hurt." How about that for an answer?
I gotta admit, I don't know if any YouTube lawyer is going to stand up to confirmation hearings. Just the nature of recording everything, but hey, I would be the first confirmation vote for you.
Excellent. Well, I only need 49 more. So, doing great.
First, we need to get Marc elected to the Senate.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there. So it's just it's easy peasy.
Most people say that I'm very fair-minded and very even-handed, and I try to look at things very fairly, and that seems to be the general consensus. I go against the zeitgeist sometimes when I think it's warranted. So I don't know. I think I'd be a good judge.
Yeah, no, I think so too. But that's a very interesting point, that this is really kind of putting all of Silicon Valley on trial, because this is a very common practice, right? And you kind of have to do that in order to sell your product, to get people to notice it. Sort of this idea of like, go big or go home. Like, we have these very big goals that we want to be meeting with our product. We've got this new app. It's going to do all these great things that are going to change people's lives. So you kind of have to do that to a certain extent, but then it's trying to figure out, where is this line at which point that goes from just plain marketing that everyone can understand where that limit is, or where you're actually defrauding people beyond that.
But where is that line? I'm sorry to interrupt, but where that line is just a problem in just kind of all the law. And I think the answer, we never know for sure, but we can give you the answer of how to be safe.
Yeah.
Right. So if you come to me as a lawyer and say, how can I avoid being prosecuted? I can give you an answer with confidence. If you ask me, where is the line? I'm going to want all the money, because it's going to require all the research to find out exactly where it is. Because if you want to dance on the edge of the precipice, you might fall off. So the best legal advice is, don't dance on the precipice, and you won't have the problem. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, Marc. That was my bad.
Marc.
Oh, no, not at all. No, but I think, and you're absolutely right. I was basically going to say the same thing, but that's what a lot of the trial and the important evidence was about, is like, when did these text messages take place, right? Like, Sonny, the president, at one point said, like, I'm worried about our overexposure because we have no solid substance. It's totally lacking right now. And she responds, yeah, but the media is why we're getting all of this money. And so when you see that text and it's like 2013, 2014, like, it really does put a fine point on, like, well, at this point, it seems like she was defrauding people, especially then when you compare that to her investor presentations, which were also in evidence, where she said, literally, we are building the most important thing humanity has ever built. That's a quote. That is a quote. And so, like, when you're saying that, but then admitting that you have nothing, like, it starts to look really obvious, that line is pretty easier to find.
That's fair. Now, as far as excuse me, defrauding patients. So she was found not guilty on those counts, right? So what was? I mean, there's number one. I guess it's probably it has to do with just the burden of proof, right? Because the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she was conspiring to defraud them and then defrauding them based on the charge that we're talking about. So it seems like they just didn't have enough evidence in order to show that, because to me, those two, whether it's against the investors or against the patients, it seems very similar, because it has to do with whether or not they have the product that they say they have, right? So to me, I had some questions beyond the burden of proof as to whether or not they had proved that, or whether or not there was enough evidence to show that.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I'm trying to square as well, right? Because a lot of the claims and a lot of the witnesses were like, I got a false positive diagnosis for HIV, right? Yeah. And so that caused me X amount of, and so I was defrauded, or I was, and I think that the level of attenuation, I think you can go down the attenuation chain and say, well, she probably did this. But I think that really none of the cases and none of the witnesses were false negatives, that they didn't catch an illness that then a patient died from or something like that. I guarantee you if that happened, I bet you the charges would have been changed. But because they were all false positives, I just don't think that the jury was really swayed that much harm really came to them, especially when they were looking day in, day out about billions of dollars of being built on the other end. I don't think that's right, but I that's kind of where I see it.
That's a fair point too.
If that's the right legal standard, then I'd like to announce the start of my biotech company, where I will test your blood, and the answer is always you have the disease every single time.
Prognosis negative
every single time. Yes, you have all the things. It's amazing. Please check for secondary confirmation.
I will not invest any money in you. I'm sorry.
Excellent.
Because so that's a very good point though, Mark, is that all of the invalid test results that they got back were all false positives, right? So somebody thought that she had cancer. Somebody thought that there was a woman that was pregnant that the blood test said that she had a miscarriage when she actually didn't. So I can see how if you don't get that verified by a doctor, then that can cause other problems as well, especially with the miscarriage. If you're like, well, I'm assuming I had a miscarriage, and so now I'm going to go
tequila to get over it.
Yeah. Let's have some cigarettes and some tequila and get over it, and whatever. Let's party or whatever. I can see how there would be issues like that, but it sounds like everyone, as soon as they got alerted that they had some sort of a test result, they were like, let me go to a doctor. Let me get this checked out. Oh, okay, that's actually false. This test is a load of crap. But also the fact that they said that they were using their own miracle machine, this Edison, right? This miracle machine that they were all up about, but then they were actually using the other industry competitors for these tests when they realized that all of these negative or false positive results were coming out. That was interesting to me that wasn't enough also.
Well, but who are they really defrauding at that point? If anything, really, they're kind of defrauding LabCorp, right? Because the patient is going in expecting a diagnosis. Yeah, maybe they want you to use their tools, but what they want is they want their blood to be analyzed. So as long as you're offering an actual analysis of their blood, regardless of how you get it, it seems like the damage of that fraud is minimal to the patient.
Once again, just give me some dice and a list of illnesses, and I'll give you a diagnosis.
It's called Roll the Dice.
Hey, Mark, Mr. Game Maker over here.
I'm in.
Here's a freebie. Here's a freebie game idea. Elizabeth Holmes, the game. Some diseases, some dice. You roll, and you have to convince people about it or something. Game of deception, secret information. Go.
Honestly, I love it. I mean, there's actually there's a game called Snake Oil. If I can rep other people's games, if you're looking into fun party games, it's basically you have to sell. You have to give the most convincing sell of this stuff here. It's a wonderful, silly social game. If Snake Oil wanted to make a Theranos, expansion pack, I'm sure they could.
Oh my gosh.
You're in front of General Mattis. You're in front of General Mattis. You need to get $200 million from the U.S. Armed Forces. How do you do it?
Space lasers.
Oh my God, space lasers. You can shoot out your blood into space so the Space Force can see it and analyze it up there. There you go. Yeah. Oh man. Well, interesting stuff. But we'll see how. So you really think six years, Mark, that she'll get 6 years?
I've seen enough. I've spent enough time in the shadow of SDNY and look, SDNY brings big cases that are hard. I am not. I
like
think
the
they
Maxwell
are
trial.
wonderful. Yeah, right. They're often, they're not scared to bring difficult things to prove and complex things to prove. But like the sentencing is just, it's hard for a city to totally rebuff its number one economics driver. It's just really hard to do that. And so they end up kind of giving these middling sentences that are jail time. There is actual jail that they're spending, but they're never nailing anyone to the wall. And look, I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to be proven wrong, because I do think that in a lot of ways, venture capitalists.
Bernie Madoff was nailed to the wall.
He was.
You think it's just different because
it might be
also old and everyone already hated him.
Yeah.
It was, that's a very good counterpoint. Honestly, I'm going to think about that a little bit more. But like, he was 70. He was doing this stuff when he was 50. A 19-year-old getting stars in her eyes and then getting a little carried away is, I feel like if you put a 19-year-old away for life, I don't know. I'm just saying it's different. That's all.
And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. But one of the things that really irritated me about the defense, not that they necessarily had anything better. So for the lawyers, I sort of get it, but still it irritates the shit out of me. Is the entire defense to me boiled down to, I'm just a girl. I'm a young girl, young and naive, with bright things in my eyes, and these mean men deceive me because they want only one thing from me: to trick me into running a biotech company that promises to run people's blood through magical machines.
They tricked me into trying to take over the world.
Yeah. So as the CEO and founder of this company, I was deceived with the doe-eyed innocence by these mean, exploitative men. I find that defense irritating.
Yeah, I will say that the whole it seemed like it was an 11th hour defense. Also, the one where she was saying, Sunny Balwani was emotionally and sexually abusing her or something, and that was clouding her judgment, throughout this whole process, and they were, because supposedly they were like sort of not secretly dating during this whole process, and so she turned around and accused him of all of that, and yeah, but that to me just didn't seem very convincing. Partly because of the timing of that argument.
Well, and part of her reason for doing it, and the defense's team reason for doing it, is because he's going to trial soon, right? So, like, as much as if you can get any of that hatred off of you and onto him, that that might not affect a verdict and a decision, but it might affect sentencing. If you can, I'm not saying it's good or right or honest, but I see why they did it. I do want to give her credit for one thing.
Okay.
In a trial like this, you never, ever, 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 ever see the defendant take the stand. And not only did she take it, she took it for like days, right?
20 hours. 20 hours.
Insane. I think that was like 7 days of
because I was trying to remember how many days. I think 20 hours is actually not the takeaway. I think the 6 or 7 days is the takeaway. It was crazy. A long time.
Yeah, so I'm not saying, so I'm not surprised. It's like, it almost feels like a filibuster in a lot of ways, that like you're throwing everything at the wall. If you're going to be on the stand for 7 days and you're probably just like, I don't know, whatever, start out.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we've had some high profile trials aside from this one where the defendant has taken the stand, and like the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, he took the stand. Same thing with Kim Potter. For Kyle, it worked out. For Kim Potter, not so much, because her testimony, I think, was a little bit less convincing to the jury, apparently, from what the one juror that came out and spoke with the media afterwards said. But it's such a risky gamble. But I think that for Elizabeth Holmes, maybe they were thinking, you know what, you were able to convince these guys to part with billions of dollars or millions up to $1 billion. Maybe you can convince 12 people to
144 million, I believe, is the amount that she was ultimately convicted of. So
yeah, exactly. So maybe you can convince these 12 jurors that you did it, and that you were you did it legally. Exactly. So, I don't know.
I hope she gets. I hope she gets whatever the law will allow for. Because first of all, Silicon Valley needs to be whacked a little bit over the head just to remind them that this is a possibility, and maybe scare them a little bit into not so much with all this crap in the future. And also, she earned every day of whatever she gets, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and even if she doesn't serve that much time, I think that for a lot of people, even just the threat of maybe going to jail for running a business, or running a startup can be maybe enough to scare a lot of people. Because you think about the Twilight Zone movie, the trial against Mark Landis. That was enough, I think, to scare the crap about to scare the crap out of a lot of filmmakers with safety on set, right? I mean, I would think.
Alec Baldwin.
Okay.
But that literally happened 33 years later, and not on a major studio production.
Right.
I mean, there are also other examples, very tragic examples. But
Of
The
course,
Crown.
yeah.
And what was? I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there, but you were totally
No.
right. And I was going to say something, but I didn't say it. Yeah, it was just, you're absolutely right, and I think that's really going to be a nice deterrent, because, and the other thing it's going to deter from, that was it, is Elizabeth Holmes was an entire cult of personality. She was trying to be the next Steve Jobs. She was out there in the media. She was just lapping it up and twisting herself into whatever she needed to be to get the most media coverage. And so I think that any sort of jail time at all, or even just this trial in general, makes those sort of Silicon Valley people less just wary about becoming the next Elizabeth Holmes if you're going to try and be the next Steve Jobs, right? Yeah. So maybe worry a little less about your bluster and a little more about, what you can do. Maybe not, but, well, I can always hope.
Yeah, I think so. Also, I want to get this super chat real quick. The Real Holtzonator says, "Hello all, thanks for your legal analysis. It has been enlightening. It has been enlightening. Uncivil, I sent you a short message in Discord. I would really appreciate it if you would read it whenever you have a minute. Best wishes to you all." Did you get it?
I wonder if he sent a "how fucked is he?" That'd be good.
I got a message that just said "movie ? Please ?
Oh.
I don't know what that means.
Do you want us to make a movie about these trials? About the guy chopping up his parents? And then wrapping his shoe in tinfoil?
Perhaps.
So
anyhow, so I think we've basically covered everything with Elizabeth Holmes, unless you guys have anything else that you would like to talk about. But I think overall this hopefully will kind of make some changes like we've talked about, for the industry to sort of recalibrate the industry a little bit in how they do their marketing.
And I think the last point I'll put on this is that I really think that the media surrounding it, her own cult of personality, attracted the media to her. So then when all of these things started coming out, well before the trial, you were seeing Alex Gibney documentaries. You were seeing, 60-minute specials, even before any charges had been brought. So there was absolutely a media, I don't want to say blitz, but that she had built around herself. And so this was inevitable. The story was kind of inevitable. And I think a verdict that had at least some guilt to it was going to be.
Someone sent me an email regarding a potential tool that might be a potential replacement for Streamlabs or StreamYards. This thing, VDO.Ninja. I'll have to look into it, see if this is viable. But if it will help solve the problems we're trying to solve without the audio problems of StreamYards, I'm definitely interested.
Okay. Interesting. Well, with that non sequitur.
Wow, another good segue. Look at you.
Let's go into which one? Let's talk about the vaccine mandates, because we're probably already demonetized on this live stream anyhow, because we usually are from the very beginning.
There were some
many reasons.
Yeah.
No, I typically, this is what, Mark, this is what happens on pretty much every single live stream. I'll check from the back. I'll check the monetization on the back side of my channel, and it'll show after like 5 minutes that it's already been, it's yellow, it's been demonetized, or it says limited monetization because it got picked up by whatever algorithm. And I'm sure just by the title alone, the fact that we're talking about these oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court is probably about enough. So hopefully it'll get remonetized soon enough, but we'll see. I'll have to get it reviewed. Anyhow.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. Well, let's take a look at the oral arguments that are supposed to be happening in front of the Supreme Court on the 7th. Kurt, do you know about this one?
Not in particular. No, I'm not as up to speed on this.
Okay. So last Wednesday, the U.S. Supreme Court announced that it would hear oral arguments on January 7th regarding the legality of 2 federal COVID-19 vaccine mandates issued under the Biden administration. And what I'm looking at right now is an article on JD Supra about it. It's pretty good, pretty succinct, and has links to all of the documents, like all of the complaints and everything. It's pretty good. And it looks like there's the OSHA rule for that was issued on November 5th, 2021, where they are requiring employers with 100 or more employees to ensure each of their workers is fully vaccinated or test for COVID on a weekly basis. That's one of the rules that's being examined. And then the other one is the rule that was issued by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, also on November 5th. The rule mandates that staff working for Medicare or Medicaid certified providers are fully vaccinated against COVID-19, with narrow exceptions for religious and medical reasons. Interesting stuff. I know a lot of people are going to be interested in this one because this affects a lot of people working.
No, this is, this has been a big one in my household. My wife is an employment attorney, and so kind of this has been, and it's been lightning pace. If any of you guys are like SCOTUS watchers, or federal courts watchers, you watch these sort of slow pace of things, but this is just picked up and picked up and picked up. And there's a lot of interesting I find it interesting, but intricate admin rules that are going around that is really weird because, so whenever, the OSHA ETS requirement, the emergency requirement that they put in place, a lot of different people in different districts challenged it. And so there's a lottery process called multi-circuit petitions, MCPs, to figure out what circuit it will be seen under, right? And so the Fifth Circuit won the lottery. And if you know the Fifth Circuit, you probably imagine that they were going to put a stay on this mandate going into effect, right? But the weird, the way it's structured is that any stay goes back into the lottery to be re-examined by another circuit. And so it went to the Sixth Circuit, and the Sixth Circuit
doesn't even make sense, really.
Yeah, it doesn't, which is, it's going to be boring to talk about. We could talk about it off air, but from an admin law, like Fed courts, this whole thing came out in 1988. This whole statute came out in 1988 because there was just a race. It was like whoever filed first, they would go in that circuit. And so they were like, we can't do that anymore. So we give people 10 days to file challenges, right? And then we'll pick a lottery to see which circuit it goes to. And so then the Sixth Circuit.
Part I kind of understand, but I don't understand the idea where one circuit is reviewing the judgments of another circuit because they're acting as basically a court of appeals for another court of appeals, or
the way it works is if someone wants to appeal the stay, and then that appeal before going to the Supreme Court goes to the other circuit courts, basically because it's kind of, you won the lottery, that doesn't mean your jurisdiction is going to go while we await this thing. It is a weird system. So the Sixth Circuit removed the stay. So now, once that happened, the Supreme Court's like, shit, this stuff is supposed to go into effect in 3 weeks. So we have to now set emergency oral arguments to see whether the stay removal remains in effect. And so now all these employers are like, I have no idea what to do. These new standards are supposed to go into effect. They were actually already supposed to go into effect. OSHA said, like, we're going to give another week. We're not going to issue citations for a week. But people are like, thanks. You know, so it's just, so
1 week.
Yeah, so it's absolute mayhem. And this is all going to be heard on the 7th. And the rules are supposed to go into effect on the 10th. So like, it's
yikes.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insanity.
And did the Supreme Court put in a stay? And did the Supreme Court put a stay in while they're reviewing it?
No, I don't think so.
No,
really?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this is the whole because this is the whole thing. They're going to review whether or not it merits a temporary injunction, whether it merits a stay.
All right.
And so they said it so quick.
Back to something that's going to bore everyone but me, but whatever, I don't care. So back on this circuit reviewing circuits thing. If the First Circuit had said no, so the Fifth Circuit had said no. Does that get reviewed by another circuit?
Said no, as in what? As in they struck down the law entirely, or they didn't?
They just said no. They said no stay. The Fifth Circuit,
they just let it go forward.
A no stay is not the other way. A no stay is not reviewable by another circuit.
But the stay is
because they're not. Yeah, because they're not changing the law, right? Now, the MCPs only take effect when someone is challenging an agency decision, right, or an executive branch decision. They're saying this OSHA requirement is terrible.
Why not just send it? Why not just send all of it to the DC circuit? That's what they do is agency law. That's their life.
Well, that's because it's really crowded and quick. And so a lot of different people, the DC circuit actually could have gotten it in this lottery system, right? You totally could have.
The federal circuit, that's hilarious.
I know.
Probably not.
But I don't think anyone challenged it in the DC circuit, honestly.
No, I'm just thinking it's like the DC circuit is one of the reasons the DC circuit is so important. It's thought of as the most important appellate court is because they deal with basically all the agencies because all the agencies are basically in DC. So they deal with all their life is agency law. And so if you're going to be suing agencies, then and you have to pick a place, then why not DC? Because that's kind of what they do with their time.
Well, you're trying to invalidate a rule that doesn't necessarily require, that doesn't necessarily require that sort of agency expertise. I mean, it would be great if they could handle all that stuff on this quick basis. But also, look, the district attorney of Texas has a different interest in invalidating this law, right? Absolutely, it does. It's going to apply to him just as much. I take moral exception to this entire scheme as a theoretical court of appeals judge. I don't like this entire scheme. It's like you earned my vote.
I don't like it because it's like if I say no, then my judgment's fine. But if I say yes, then I have to be checked by another of my sister circuits. They're on the same level as me. So it's frustrating to me because it's like, why even ask me the question when there's only one possible correct answer? Why even bother asking me? What am I doing here?
What do you mean? I mean,
because the only possible correct answer is no. Because if it's no, then I win. But if it's yes, well, then I suddenly get checked by the Sixth Circuit or the Second Circuit or the Third Circuit, who's going to hate everything, or the Ninth Circuit, who's going to hate everything I live and breathe on these issues. So why even bother asking me in the first place?
Think about it as a modified, or the way I think about it at least, is a modified en banc, right? Is the idea that you're doing a full en banc, but you're kind of
why not just do the en banc like normally?
Because when you're dealing with these sort of stays and emergency orders, the idea of when you can get an en banc, when you can impanel an en banc, it tends to be on a slower time.
Well, that I have no sympathy to, man. You're a federal judge. You're in the Court of Appeals. It's an emergency. Guess what you're doing? You're getting on a fucking plane. Congratulations, and you're flying down to wherever, and you're having a goddamn hearing. Pull up your big boy pants.
So as much as I do feel the sympathy, I do want to point out one thing. The Sixth Circuit has more impaneled Republican-appointed judges than the Fifth Circuit. Like, if we're going to say that there is, the Sixth Circuit is not the Ninth Circuit who's going to strike down anything the Fifth Circuit did. So I understand that there is the potential for this. But in this case, I don't really think that was, in the Sixth Circuit opinion was pretty good. It was certainly more thorough than the Fifth Circuit, which was just like, this sucks, get it out of here, which is fine.
But this sucks, get it out of here does that. Easy answer. Why write more work when fewer work will do?
Yeah, it's true. Fifth Circuit does that all the time. They love it. They don't like writing opinions when they don't have to.
Great. I'd like to be officially considered for Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit because that sounds like my speed.
Talk to Edith. Edith, she, we met a lot of Fifth Circuit judges back when we were at UT Law. Alita, that was
we did.
That was our home base.
Yes, yeah. We did. We had them every once in a while show up to the university to talk to us about things.
So as much as I want to keep talking about the authorizing statutes for this stuff, like I'm sure that I'm not looking at the chat specifically because I'm sure they're bored to tears, but
they're also telling me to let you talk, but I'm so incensed I can't even do that. So yeah.
Look, there's one thing I don't like the idea. We've been seeing it a lot lately is stays in a region that end up applying nationally. So anything that kind of allows for some different checks and balances into that world, or trying to figure out how to untangle that mess, I think is good. And so I'm okay with a Second Circuit checking someone when they're making a nationwide stay. That's fair. It doesn't seem crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, what's a little bit interesting for it is that because you have a special rule in this particular context, because it is not exactly unheard of for courts of appeal, and perhaps even more disturbingly, district courts, to issue these nationwide global states. It's like, how many courts of appeal or district courts are there? Like 92? Is something in that neighborhood? Does anyone happen to remember off the top of their head? Anyway, why is this one district court of the 92 of them that there are issuing a nationwide stay? Who made you God? So I feel you there. So I think the Supreme Court, last time I checked, is a supervisory court in an admin sense as well as in a review sense. So why the Supreme Court should, do their supervisory thing and be like, hey, courts of appeal and hey, inferior courts, because that's literally what you're called. Hey, inferior courts. We've noticed you've been issuing some nationwide stays. Here's what you're going to be doing now in terms of that. Why can't you just do that? Because I have the goddamn Supreme Court. You will bow to my will.
They can't even set themselves. They can't even set themselves a code of ethics or let video cameras in the courtroom. So, like, what are they? They're not,
I'm sympathetic to the Supreme. I'm sympathetic to the video camera at the Supreme Court. Not as sympathetic at the trial courts or Court of Appeals. I don't know. Probably shouldn't make a difference, but I don't know. The Supreme Court. I'm not sure about the video camera thing. At least they do have audio in all of them, so that's nice. So at the district level, you don't have tapes. Often, you don't have that, and you don't have transcripts. You don't.
Although the Ninth Circuit is now doing oral arguments, so that's awesome. So
the Supreme Court is satisfying me because you get transcripts same day, and you get now you get audio at the end of the week, if not sooner.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy with that because I'm getting essentially real time stuff. Why can't I get at least that from all the district and courts of appeal? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, if it's good enough for the Supreme Court to be recorded for their oral arguments, I feel like it should be good enough for everyone below them. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Put me on the Supreme Court. I'll pass a regulation on that. That'll be fine.
This is wow! Now you're not even content with the circuit court. You're just going up and up on this. I don't know if you have my vote for that yet, man.
Well, if you put me on the Supreme Court, it also, by definition, makes me circuit justice. So that allows me to step down and also serve on the Court of Appeals anytime I want. And also, because I'm circuit justice, I instantly outrank everyone who's there. It's great.
I don't know if we want to give Kurt this much power.
Yeah, it doesn't exactly.
It's like I'm going to be showing up to this this hearing now as Supreme Court justice. You can call everyone else judge, and you call me justice, jackass.
Oh God. But the actual question that they're going to be examining here is whether or not the rules were made within the scope of the authority that these agencies had. And it's interesting because we kind of saw this a little bit earlier with the
eviction thing.
Exactly, the eviction moratorium by the CDC. And it was kind of funny because the Supreme Court, they were like, well, we're going to indicate that we really don't like this, but we're going to push this off to the side because it's about to expire anyway.
No,
so we don't really want to be the bad guys.
This was a part where I did. This is a part where I did sort of deviate from some of my fellow conservatives on the remedy issue, because I thought it was a reasonable remedy to say, well, it's say, well, this is outside the power, but it's going to expire anyway in three weeks. So we can do kind of one of two things. We can either let it just expire now and say, cut it off, or everyone's already built expectations. Mm-hmm. So they've already built expectations on this thing is going to end in 3 weeks. So for me, it's like, let it just expire in 3 weeks, because if you end it right now, that's going to be disruptive against people's expectations and sort of the remedy. But if you let it run for 3 weeks more, it's not that bad. So I did deviate a lot from my fellow conservatives who said, well, if you find it illegal, you should just put it to bed now. And I'm like, well, remedies is always an interesting thing. There's an entire class on it in law school. Yeah. And I thought the remedy was actually quite reasonable. It was. Yeah. There was not enough juice worth the squeeze to end it now versus 3 weeks from now, in my view. Right.
I did agree with that as well. I mean, it did seem to be an equitable result in terms of the law. I know equity is kind of a hot buzzword these days that people have different opinions on, depending on what side of the political.
It meant something before the left jacked it.
but in terms of the law, we talk about equitable results as well. That you don't, just because somebody wins one way or another on a particular legal issue, you may not necessarily have a very strict enforcement of that rule because of equity. Oh, thanks, Mom. Mama Bites is over here. Hi, guys. She says hi, everyone.
Hello.
Right. So I thought that was a very fair sort of result, even though I think it was Kavanaugh that wrote it, that said that he was like, look, this probably is not gonna this probably wouldn't be something that we would uphold, but XYZ, it's got 3 weeks, so we'll just let it lie. But then it was interesting to see the next opinion when they were like, well, okay, this is what we said before, and now you guys started it up again. We kind of indicated to you what we were going to say.
Because you made me look like a jackass. Look, this is one of the things where it's like, I was trying to be nice as the judge. I was trying to show you a little bit of mercy and a little bit of consideration, and now you made me look like a fool. So guess what happens next? Boom! It's like, I tried real hard. And you made me look like a fool. So yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, how obviously they have to they'll have to analyze this separately from the CDC's authority for to determine housing. That's because what they're going to do is they're going to look at the actual statute that created the agency, see what kind of powers that are enumerated in there. Whether or not these other agencies can determine rules as far as employment is concerned is going to be another question. But I don't know. Have you guys looked at any of the briefing on this? Okay.
Yeah, I've read a good amount of the briefing, and I think and there's two cases that are going to be heard tomorrow, right? There's the OSHA standard, the ETS, the emergency OSHA standard, that's going to go into effect for all employers with more than 100 employees, but that's not actually a mandate. It's basically saying you have to come up with a schema that's either everybody is vaccinated or
it's mandate.
If you're not vaccinated.
Close enough to a mandate for me. I'm calling it a mandate.
Well, but it offers an option, right? It's literally not a mandate, which is kind of where the argument turns. Is that it says if you don't want to implement mandatory vaccination and you're above 100 employees, then you can, in lieu of that, just say mask and test, and so a mask and test weekly. So it's definitely not a vaccine.
In lieu of that,
mandate.
You can shove a Q-tip up your employee's nose every 15 minutes. And
look, I'm not saying that that it is a mandate. It's just not a vaccine mandate, right? But then the CMS, the other one that's being heard is the CMS, which is the very obscure agency called the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and so that is a vaccine mandate. That is a literal vaccine mandate, but that only has to do with medical and healthcare providers who have chosen to opt in or continue to choose to opt into Medicare and Medicaid. So there's an opt-out provision of that. So those are kind of where they're working in and what's the push and pull, and it seems like the speculators seem to think that it's going to be a split decision, that they're going to probably strike down the OSHA requirement.
Shit. Yeah.
Well, no. I mean,
sorry.
I
I misunderstood what you said.
Yeah,
My bad.
They're gonna uphold one and strike down the other. Or at least, again, this is all just for administering a stay. So they're going to put a stay on the OSHA standard, the ETS, and not put a stay on the CMS, basically because the CMS is limited to healthcare. These are the frontline workers. If you're thinking about these sort of things, like there's less of kind of a those sort of dangers, and it applies to less people, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, and also anytime an agency is tying something very directly to their funding and saying you can agree to not take funding, from us, or you can take it, but with some strings attached. That also tends to be one that is generally going to be more acceptable.
It's not mandatory you pay us the protection money, but if you don't, we're going to burn your property down.
Yeah, that's it. You got it. Yeah. That's the South Dakota versus Dole, right? That if you don't want to raise your drinking age, if you don't want to raise your drinking age to 21. That's fine. You don't have to raise your drinking age to 21. We'll just cut your highway budget. And
I do it. I do it just to be a jackass.
Anyone who's
fuck you.
Anyone who's driven the border between Texas and Louisiana on the highway can still see that loss of a highway budget that Louisiana had like 40 years ago. But yeah, so yeah. That's kind of the thing. The one thing about it is the one compelling argument to me about the CMS is that they're already worried about staffing shortages. And if there is if they can show that there's going to be a lot more people who will not be coming to work if this is implemented, then that would be the cause for the stay. I think at least the
administration doesn't care. They're happy with all the people losing their jobs for some reason.
Well, I don't know about that because the recent CDC guidance that came out that cut the quarantine time in half. Their reasoning, they came out on the news and what's her face? Not Fauci, but the other.
Psaki?
No, the other one from the CDC. I can't remember her name.
I don't know the name of the other liar. I'm sorry.
Well, anyway, so she was on the news and she was saying that the part of the reasoning was because they issued these guidelines around isolation and quarantining around what they thought that people would be able to handle, what people would cope with.
Translation: we based it on people's willingness to be cocks and comply with our bullshit. And too many people defied our bullshit, and so
the cut statute. Yeah, I remember that.
Exactly. Cucking, Also known as the beta statute. But she said, because essentially, reading between the lines, it was because a lot of people are not following the 10-day rules anyhow. We want to at least show that we have some sort of authority in this space. So we're gonna cut that in half to 5 days. If you don't have any symptoms, and then you can walk around with a mask for the next 5 days.
Let's go, Brandon.
So there is, and part of that. I think part of that was also a response to a lot of the airlines that are saying we have to cancel flights because we don't have crew to be able to work because we're having to isolate everybody because Omicron is spreading like crazy right now. And I think a lot of that is in response to those kinds of big businesses that are saying, hey, this is a big problem for us. So
I think you're absolutely right. And I was, I've been letting them slide here. I've been letting these sort of, cuck comments and things. But let's go, Brandon. I'm going to push back just a little bit here. I think.
Sure.
As far as the CDC goes, aside from any sort of whoever is in charge, the CDC should be promulgating guidelines that are the strictest that they can within the bounds of their authority, given what the data is showing. And so the 10-day requirement, I think, was totally prudent to put in play, even though when you look at the data, it was on the ends of the bell curve. That you were seeing anything happen with 10 days. The incubation time, all of that was mostly at least to 7 days and 10 days with the outlier, but I get why they did it. And I really think that the change to 5 days is both within bounds of their authority already, but also within the bounds of what's reasonably necessary to keep going what they've been trying to do. And so I really applaud the decision on both ends, that I think that it was right for the CDC to mandate the 10 days. And I think it was right for them to cut it to 5, especially with all the data that's coming out that Omicron is if you're vaxxed and boosted, it's not bad, So there we go. So let's go Biden, I guess. Is there a counter to let's go Brandon? Am I supposed to, is there like an answer that we've come up with yet? I don't really know.
I don't know about that. I don't know if there is actually a counter to it at this point. At least I haven't seen one anyhow. But yeah, I mean that's a fair point, and I'm glad that we've got multiple perspectives on the issue, right? And that's partly what we like to do on our channels, is not be an echo chamber. And that's also why I love just to bring up your game again, but also because it's like it's stuff like that is great, because it's, yes, there you go. Because it's great for having discourse about disagreements and stuff like that. But for me, I think that the one thing that gets me though is that if we're talking about public trust, and we're talking about people being convinced that the government is telling them the truth, I think that there are a lot of people out there that feel like they've been slowly bamboozled by the government. And anytime you have this sort of changing guidance, people feel like okay, then maybe you were lying to me before. You didn't have, like, you say that you didn't have information, but now you do. I don't know if I believe that. The government lies about things. The government likes to obfuscate. So I just, for me, I think that, even for me personally, I feel like it does sort of wear away that trust over time,
Yeah, trust in institutions in general is at a total all-time low now, and it's understandable why, and I totally get it. To the idea that the CDC, to me, where I kind of get off the train, as a skepticist, is the idea that the CDC is trying to do something nefarious. I am totally on board with the kind of Veep idea that they are mostly self-centered and trying to do something in their own interests, and sometimes it works out for us and sometimes it doesn't. But I don't believe in the House of Cards idea that they're just trying to kind of whatever, make us wear pussy hats or whatever.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you that I see the government more as the show Veep, which is a fantastic show, by the way. I love that show. But I think that it probably is more a bunch of people that are people. They're just trying to figure out what the heck they're doing in their roles. And, however short or long somebody's been in a particular role of authority, people are always still trying to figure it out, because there's always going to be issues that they've never dealt with, and a pandemic is one of them.
So let me ask you a more specific question, and if you wish to defer, that's fine. But what do you think specifically with respect to Fauci? And I'll just state what I think first. I found that at least in my view, he's made specific false statements to Congress. For example, when he said that they weren't funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan, that appears to me to be false. When he was saying about masks not being needed in the early days of the pandemic, he was doing it because he was concerned about mask supply, not because that was the correct advice. And there's been other statements from Fauci that I have found to be misleading to lies. So I guess with respect to your view on the not nefarious versus whatever, how do you view Fauci in particular? And if you wish to defer, that's fine.
No, not at all. I mean, so the first, I'm not totally going to speak to the funding thing, because I haven't looked at it in a year. I don't remember. I remember it was attenuated. There is a connection to some degree, but I also, I'm not going to speak to that just because I don't recall enough.
That's fair.
Obviously, the mask statement was a mistruth. Like, totally. It was, you can call it a lie, you can call it a whatever. He absolutely said it, and that was not true. I think that the idea that politicians are speaking, and he is a politician. He's a bureaucrat, 40 years entrenched, and he's been in there. The idea that politicians, when they say one mistruth, are all of a sudden completely untrustworthy is
under oath.
Yes, under oath. I think. Did he take under oath that masks weren't required? Was that under oath?
Yeah, at the time, I mean, he was giving testimony to Congress when he was saying that, and I provided it on my channel.
I saw him on interviews saying that, but again, regardless, because I haven't looked at this in a while, and so I will defer to your, to your knowledge.
I'm not holding your feet to the fire.
Yeah,
I mean, if you don't know things, that's fine.
For me, Fauci is exactly what a 40-year-old bureaucrat is going to look like. He is absolutely trying to do his best, and he does sometimes. And he also tries to cover his ass in ways that everybody gets adept at doing when they're trying to save their job. And that has been harmful in times, and that has been negligible at times. I think holding his feet to the fire and saying that whatever he says is totally a lie and malicious and bad because he said these things about masks a year and a half ago when they were afraid they were going to run out of masks is kind of holding a politician to a higher level of standard than we hold anyone else to. Now, is he a trustworthy bureaucrat? I don't know, but I don't think that he's an idiot. I do think that he absolutely knows his science and is doing this job a lot better than I would be able to do. I don't think he's an evil human being either.
Well, Kurt, before you talk, let me just jump in. Hey, Nate, how's it going?
Hey guys, what's going on?
So Nate, this is my friend Marc. We went to law school together.
Hey, hi, Marc. What's going on?
So
Hi, Nate.
He's on the channel for the first time, and he's out of Austin, Texas, and he also, like Andy, has a
When are we
game.
getting together and having a beer? That's a real question, Marc, and I'm serious about that one.
Yeah, we
I
need
feel
to.
attacked.
Yes, it is a great game about examining biases and kind of like Cards Against Humanity, but different. Similar
I'll take that
in
comparison.
play structure. Yeah, similar in play structure, but it's pretty cool. They have these. If I can show them. Wait. Oh, hang on. Here we go. So you're grouping things together that you think are similar. People who are similar to one another. People who have divorced parents. People who have done push-ups in public, not in a gym. There are ways of putting these things together in ways that one person might think are the same kind of person, and someone else will be like, I don't really think so. So it's a really great way to have discourse about biases and things like that. So anyhow, and this is Marc. This is Nate the lawyer. He's another member of LawTube.
Yes. Where can you find the game at? Is there a link or a site?
You can find the link, which is going to be in the description below. Feelattacked.com. I have the link tree of Feel Attacked, but it's going to launch on Kickstarter on March 1st.
Nice.
So is so it's going to be available, pretty soon after that. I've actually made an order already so that I can fulfill the Kickstarters much quicker than say 6 months, given the shipping problems that are going on.
Can I suggest some cards for the game built around some of the comments I've made in this stream?
As long as you don't suggest that one that you already suggested that I told you was not in the game. But yes, 100%.
Yeah, jump in there, and the next thing I know, I hear Fauci. I'm like, you guys are talking about Fauci. Oh no!
I just want you to know, Nate, it was totally wonderful for an hour and 10, and it's still wonderful now. But I'm just saying that we had not been at loggerheads at all.
So let me get a couple super chats and then we can continue on this discussion about Dr. Fauci. Danny Nelson says, what is the point of pushing the pre-treatment? What is the vaccine when someone who is vaccinated contracts the virus and can still spread it? Well, one of the other benefits, I can speak to this. One of the other benefits that I personally liked when I got vaccinated was the idea that even if you do get sick, the symptoms are supposed to be much, much more mild. And so for me personally, totally anecdotal, it's, the University of my own eyeballs doing this study. My symptoms were very, very mild and very short-lived. So I know that generally speaking, that's been the case for Omicron for a lot of people, vaccinated and non-vaccinated, but that is supposed to be one of the benefits of getting the juice.
But isn't that like statistically that's been proven out too, right? If you're vaccinated, you're not going to, you're like 1% to go to a hospital. Non-vaccinated is like 90% of people in the hospitals are unvaccinated. Yes. And I'm always surprised to find people think vaccines are like supposed to be like magic bullets, like no, like the flu vaccine, for instance. The flu vaccine is like half as effective as the COVID vaccine. Matter of fact, there's no vaccine, not one anyone's taken in the history of humanity that's 100% effective. So I don't know why people, I don't know why people think this vaccine is going to be different than other vaccines, but
it's true. Yeah,
like no vaccine that anybody's ever made. Just so everybody in the chat understands, there's no vaccine ever made on the planet Earth in the history of our planet that's 100% effective.
Yeah,
everyone has breakthrough infections.
Yeah.
Shocking, right?
Like and I was thinking about how as soon as I get back home, I've got to get all of the pets in the zoo. They need their boosters for the rabies vaccine, for example. And that's a pretty common one that we don't really have to worry about anymore because of the vaccine, right? But you still have to get boosters for these things.
Yes, all vaccines have. So, but people are saying polio. Polio does have breakthrough infections. There are people who have breakthrough infections of polio. Yes, that happens. The reason why you don't see it is because of herd immunity. But again, this is I think just people don't understand how vaccines work. They just think they're all 100% effective, but it's not. I'm sorry, guys. Just look it up. Don't trust me. Look it up. Yeah.
Edgar Allan Yo-Yo says, "Are the guidelines put out by the CDC actually followed by anyone?" I followed them when I got sick, so that's at least me.
That's one.
Nathan DeBruin is watching. Hey Nate. AKA Photo Chad. He said, make sure you check out Legalbytes merchandise. Yeah, thank you so much. I just sent Nate, I just sent him a t-shirt that I'm selling called Be Like Photo Chad. So you guys can check that out on the merch website. There are a couple more super chats here.
I wonder if people consider the flu vaccine a vaccine because I don't know. It's like
I know some people say that they call it a shot, not a vaccine.
Yeah,
I think at that point it's just different. I don't think the labels are that helpful, to be quite honest. At that point,
maybe because everybody's like, this is I don't know, is the flu vaccine a vaccine now? I don't know.
Yes.
Quick DC614 says, how bad must the infraction be to reevaluate the stance? I disagree wholeheartedly with you, but I appreciate the take. Good convo. I'm not sure. They must be talking about this the reevaluation by the CDC of their policies. Maybe I'm not sure about what they mean by the infraction. Sorry about that.
Yeah, could be the stay. It could be the stay on the new OSHA rules, or it could be me talking about Fauci. That's
it. Could be any of these things. And also, Nate, I think this one is for you.
No. I stopped looking at the chat a little while ago with the first grifter comment. So I just want you to know, quick DC 614. I just want you to know, this is just a thing from me to you. It's spelled Country. I know you probably haven't opened up a book in a while.
Oh no!
No! This
is inside joke.
This is a good reference.
Joke. Yeah, this is
a good reference to the Justice Smollett trial.
I know.
So you understand the Jussie Smollett, the Nigerian MAGA. So that's where we get that from. That's the Nigerian MAGA from Jussie Smollett. MAGA country.
This is
spelled MAGA wrong too.
This is Nate's new calling card, essentially, on every single live stream that he shows up on. There's bound to be a super chat for him to shout
permanent grift. Although at this point you should be getting royalties.
But
have you trademarked it yet? Come on, man.
No, I need to. This.
And Mandy Kadavichus says the guy working at the bay or bar maybe next to me tested positive for COVID vaccine for COVID yesterday. I was close to him for around an hour. They let him go for protocol, but since I'm vaxxed, they kept me there at work. Okay, cool. I mean, truth be told, I mean, depending on, I was looking at the percentages, right? The percentages of the effectiveness. If you're unboosted. If you're not boosted, it's like 35% protection at this point if you're double vaxxed. But then if you're boosted and it's been at least a week, I think you have a 75% protection. So I would still be concerned, even being vaxxed and boosted. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So sorry, I hope you don't get it, Mandy.
But Omicron seems to be very, very mild.
But if you do, that's true. That's true. If you do, then it's probably going to be pretty mild. Hopefully, knock on wood. 200 Watt Studio says, especially experimental ones like the COVID ones, no large data yet. I love you, Nate, but not on this take. So
I need to actually run because I need to do some day job stuff. But I'll just simply say that I appreciate the discussion, and hopefully it was showing Marc all the respect in the world, because I appreciate divergent opinion.
Yeah.
No, it was great talking with you. It was great meeting with you. I really liked it.
And I think my only real strong point of disagreement is sort of in the underlying premise that Fauci is a politician. I don't really agree with that premise. He is a professional in a bureaucracy. It's a public agency, but he's not running for anything. He's trying to speak, and he's attempting to speak as a expert authority in a particular field. His way of purporting to represent himself. He's not saying, well, I'm trying to run for office, or saying he's saying I am. He literally said, depending on how you parse it, he literally said, I am the science. So he's saying that he is, and so when he's speaking from a position of authority with, using his credentials in Congress and saying things that appear to not be true, that he appears to know are not true, then it to me is discrediting. So I disagree with that premise, but I'll just leave it at that. And thank you for the conversation.
Yeah, and I think we're closer. I think we're closer on this than you think. I mean, you got to go do day job stuff. We'll talk, but but I totally.
Yeah, and seriously, I do want to hang out in Austin. So send me a DM on Twitter or something, and we can hang out. It'll be fun. Yeah,
I'm down in Buda because they were calling me Austinites. They were like, oh, no wonder he's from Austin. I'm in Buda, so I'm more rural than uncivilized.
Whatever. We're close enough to get together for a beer. Let's get together for a beer.
I would love to.
I'd
love to. Let's do it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's great.
And otherwise, Andy the Game Maker says that you guys should settle the score on Jackbox. Thanks, Andy.
Always down for Jackbox.
So fun stuff on the vaccine mandates. We'll find out what's going to happen with the Supreme Court. That'll be interesting. I would like to actually hear the oral arguments on that. I think that would be worth doing a live stream review over those, just to see what the arguments are back and forth.
For which case? The vaccine, the mandate case?
Yes, for the rule, the OSHA rule and the CMS rule, they're both getting heard by the Supreme Court on the 7th.
For whether it stays.
For whether it stays. I think this conservative Supreme Court, I think, is going to be more on, because I think a lot of people don't understand the underlying principles of the administrative state, which is there are experts. And those experts, the court is deferred to the experts' opinions. And the Chevron case, right? Chevron, all these administrative law cases. Now, Justice Thomas on the Supreme Court has hated Chevron. He hates it to death, right? He's like, no, we need to make the decision. But generally, that's the way it goes. And in these vaccine cases, it's interesting because generally, the administrative state wins out. But now with a more conservative Supreme Court, let's see how they chop that down. Because I think there's an issue here on whether the administrative state now with this OSHA mandate has been given too much authority, and hasn't been delegated through its statute. So we'll see.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think Thomas is not the only one on the court who is kind of an anti-Chevron person too. Yeah, he's not the only, and so he has some. He used to be, but he has some support now, and it's interesting. OSHA, one of the things that they're citing with this OSHA case is that OSHA has only made 10 emergency declarations rulings in its 50 years, and 6 of them were challenged in court, and 5 of those were struck down. Like, so kind of the track record seems to be that if it gets, if anyone wonders about it, we're probably going to shoot it down. So we'll see, because this seems different. Those weren't certainly promulgated during pandemics. They were promulgated often with things that were like, we think this could be a carcinogen. It seems like it might be a carcinogen, so we don't want our workers working around it. And basically, and government was like, come on, guys. So
yeah.
But it is. I think they're going to split the baby. I really do. I think that it's going to show some deference to the administrative agencies in that healthcare stuff, but then they're going to also flex their kind of super majority conservative muster and kind of anti-Chevron, flex there. We'll see.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. one thing about reading through some of the briefs, the argument that I think is most compelling against this mandate is because there seems to be this argument that, all right, we have I think like 50 or 60% of the population is vaccinated. So, and the death rates, like now, even if you see the new numbers now, there are a lot of hospitalizations, but there are low deaths. And that's a testament for everybody being vaccinated. And I think you also have to give not only Biden credit, but you have to give Trump a lot of credit. Operation Warp Speed, getting those vaccines out, and he had an infrastructure plan to get it out. So I know no matter where you come out, Trump really the way we right now, you can get a vaccine wherever, and that's really a testament to Trump. And I think Biden just kind of doubled down on that. But the issue is now, we are in a pandemic, but the disease is not leading to death. It is leading to higher hospitalizations. Yeah. So now you're trying to figure out, well, now the argument can't be, well, COVID is, we have this issue with deaths. We do have this issue with hospitalization. So now are we back to the argument of trying to slow down the curve or trying to stop the curve? So, that now is going to be a little harder argument to make versus an argument that this is just going to lead to death.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't read the OSHA statute, basically they're allowed to promulgate these rules under, quote, grave danger to the workers. And so kind of a lot of the prognostication about this was like, look, if Omicron looks bad in the next couple of weeks, then yeah, they're probably going to say it's grave danger. But if Omicron isn't, and you're right, you're just seeing some hospitalizations, you're seeing a lot of them, but deaths are not going up, then then it's likely that grave danger is going to look a little less like a compelling argument on OSHA's part.
But I'm surprised they just didn't put it through notice. So now I feel like I have to teach law for the people and for the people in the chat. The reason why OSHA, I think OSHA is going to be, this mandate's going to be gone, is because they didn't put it through notice and comment period. So everyone understands the Constitution gives us as citizens the right to due process. So the due process in the legislative piece is that we hire legislatures and they pass laws. But when it comes to administrative states, they don't pass laws, they pass regulations. So to give us that due process as citizens, they're supposed to give us notice and opportunity to be heard. Now, the Supreme Court and the legislator have said, okay, the way we're going to adhere to that constitutional principle is through what they call notice and comment period. So what they do, they write up the regulation and put it out there for the citizenry, and then you have notice and comment period. And that it's usually like 180 days where anybody can go and actually comment on new regulations. And they're supposed to take and read all those comments. But it's funny because for for net neutrality, they had something like 2 billion comments, so they couldn't read through all the comments, but because they had the bots writing comments. But generally, that's the way it works, and that's due process for citizens. The problem with the OSHA mandate is that Biden, I don't know why, they instead of going through that system, which makes it extremely hard to overturn, they did it through this emergency step. We're just going to put it in this emergency, and now it's able to be challenged because it's just like Marc was saying, is it now an emergency? So I think that's what makes it. That's the fate that what makes it subject to being overturned or for it to being stayed.
Well, yeah,
I know I said a lot.
To be clear. You explained it perfectly. Like, it was great, and the one thing, so this ETS, this emergency temporary standard or emergency temporary. Yeah. What it allows OSHA to do is to skip the notice and comment for 6 months.
Yeah.
So they can issue the rule, and then after 6 months, you get the notice and comment still. So I agree with you that if they just did the notice and comments, it wouldn't have been, it would have been, but they also, the notice and comment phase meant it wouldn't have gone into effect on January 10th or whenever they were trying.
Yeah.
They wanted to make, So I think, honestly, if the Omicron variant had turned out different, this would be a very different argument. But what it seems like and what the data is starting to really bore out is that the vaccine, the boost is effective against it, and it might be less, even though it's more transmissible, it's less virulent than the original strain. So it might, I think that the CTS or the Center for Medicare Services, that will probably stand, but I just, I don't see Kavanaugh or Gorsuch keeping the OSHA standard up.
Yeah, I think so. Bob W says, what do you think about the science teacher that gave a 17-year-old student a COVID vaccine in her own home? I haven't heard about that. Have you guys heard about that?
Yes, there was a teacher who gave a student the vaccine but didn't get permission from the parents. Now, for
Oh
what
boy.
people don't understand, that's assault. That's criminal. So
Yes.
if someone gives you a vaccine without your permission, they've assaulted you. Even if it's a good thing for you. And so that teacher may be going to jail. That's an assault.
And because they're 17, they're under 18, most likely, depending on the state, but most likely in most states, I would think, you would need parental consent for that. Even if the student was like, sure, I'll go for it. Generally speaking, you do need parental consent if you're under 18. That's nuts. I did not even hear about that. When did that happen? Do you know?
I don't know. I saw it on Twitter. It was a post on Twitter about it. I was like, this kind of sucks.
Oh gosh. Wow, that's nuts. Well, anyhow, the last subject that we've got today is the Nirvana Baby. That is a fun one. We've talked about it before on the channel.
A hard loss, baby.
Hard loss, but maybe not a complete loss. We'll see. So for those that are unfamiliar with this one, this is the guy, the man who used to be the baby that was on the cover of the Nirvana album Nevermind. And this guy, he is, he's capitalized on it quite a bit over the years. He's done photo shoots for like the 15th anniversary, the 20th anniversary. He's got Nevermind tattooed either on his chest or on his back or something like that. Like he's kind of had some fun with it. But now I guess, I think when was it, in November or something? He filed a lawsuit. Or maybe it was over the summer. Yeah, it was over the summer. That was definitely much longer ago. He filed a lawsuit against the living members of Nirvana and the estate of Kurt Cobain and a bunch of other people, saying that it was CP that they used, that he was a victim of that kind of exploitation, and that he wanted, I think it was like $150,000 from each defendant. And everything about it kind of smelled like this guy was, I mean, we use the term grift freely on this channel, right? Because we're all grifting to a certain extent. We're all trying to sell stuff. We're trying to, make a living, but this guy seemed like the absolute, like the real negative connotation of grifting. Like he really was trying to take advantage of people after he had benefited from this thing. That was at least my own personal interpretation. Anybody else can disagree. But I think we even read through the complaint in this one, and I just remember thinking, I was just not at all convinced.
Well, you called it. You straight up called it. You said it's a loss. You said, well, no, you said it was time barred and that there was no way he could win. And lo and behold, you were 100% correct.
Yeah. So. Well, although actually this dismissal, so it was dismissed. They filed a motion to dismiss, and he didn't respond. So it was a dismissal by default. So what happens for everybody watching, if you are ever part of a lawsuit and somebody files any kind of a motion against your side, you have to respond. You have to file some kind of a response. Even if you feel like you may or may not win, if you don't file any kind of a response, they automatically win on their motion because you have a certain amount of time in which you have to file your opposition to it. And in this case, I guess they didn't file anything. And so the court dismissed it without prejudice, saying that he can refile his case. This will be a second amended complaint now. Anytime we start getting into second amended complaint, third amended complaint, things start to look a little loosey-goosey. And the case for the plaintiff starts to look a little bit worse and worse. But what are your guys, Mark, what are your thoughts on this one?
Look, anyone who's done trial law has mixed up a deadline at some point in their life. Maybe they fixed it. Maybe that, maybe an admin put it in the calendar wrong. Like we've all experienced it to some degree. And, the lawyer did come out and be like, it was a miscommunication. I think it was something that like the Second Amendment, the amended complaint was due January 13th. And so like they thought that the response to the dismissal was also due that day. Who knows? Whatever it was, I'm not going to give them crap for that. It happens. I'm sorry it happened in public. I'm sorry it happened on a very public case, but it happens. But this case is hilarious. I mean, like, and part of the reason it's hilarious is because of the underlying truth, for the most part, that if the complaint is right, then I have purchased child pornography. Because if we're supposed to assume that this photo session was creating pornographic images of a minor, and I have purchased that album that has that photography on it, then I am a trafficker of that. And it
so
is going to be very hard to like thread that needle and say something different, which is it gets tough, you know.
And so is every single news agency that has shown the album. Right? This is NPR. This is NPR. You know, my this is like me as a lawyer. I, you know, when I was making the thumbnail, I'm like, you know what, just in case, I'm gonna censor this nudity a little bit just to make sure, because I don't need to show it. I don't have any interest in showing it fully. I just want people to recognize who this guy is. So, but like, this is NPR right here. They show the full album cover as it is and as it was sold. So are they trafficking in this stuff too? Like, is that really what we're saying here?
Yeah, that's you know, and look, I have a lot of deference for the claim in general. I do not think that just because I'm gonna back him up a little bit on this. I do not think that just because he celebrated these milestones necessarily means that he's a grifter. There are plenty of people who did suffer childhood trauma that engaged with that trauma. You know, I think of Aaliyah and R. Kelly, right? Aaliyah like named her album "Age Ain't Nothing But a Number" at a time when she was experiencing abuse from R. Kelly. So now, are you going to introduce that album into trial and say that, look, therefore, if you're trying to bring this claim now, you're grifting? Like, there is give and tug there. There is some play there. However,
okay, that's fair.
In this case, it looks a lot like grifting.
Well, in its case, I think the difference between this and I think the major difference here is that the parents are the ones who gave consent. They took money, they signed, like everything was done on the up and up. This wasn't like, you know, they just took some random picture. So I think that's the real protection. That's what I would the grift here would be. It's similar to what's happening kind of with Prince Andrew now, even though it's weird because with Prince Andrew, you had the poor woman who signed that horrible deal that said she couldn't sue anybody and took $500,000, and now she's coming back 10 years later saying, I want to sue him. So it's just tough. It's tough.
I would say, and I do agree, because there is something to be said for, you know, when somebody is within a certain power or certain position of lacking power. That is one thing. Like, you know, Aaliyah coming out with an album that says age is just a number while she's in a relationship with R. Kelly, you know, if that's one thing. But if she had said, you know, 10 years later, let's, you know, assume things turned out differently than they did, but, you know, as an adult 10 years later, she's celebrating all of that, and, you know, after the end of that relationship, you know, it's a little bit different than coming out with the album during the relationship. Yeah. So in this kind of a case, you know, if he had been under 18 and still celebrating this, you know, being on this album cover, that would be different. Now that he's been 15 years, 20 years later, celebrating, you know, and had multiple chances to talk about, like, hey, I was taken advantage of here, you know, but instead he's like, hey, look at me, look at my cool tattoo, you know, like I'm that baby, I'm that kid, you know, like that's me. You know, it's a little bit of a different situation, I think, in my opinion.
He couldn't make that argument, right? He couldn't make that argument because he was, you know, he couldn't make the argument that he was exploited, especially with the whole especially when you know the backstory about the parents and the picture, and nobody can even recognize him now from that picture of the baby, right? It's not like, say, oh, that's you, John. That's you. Yeah. I know it. You looks like you. You're like, no, right? So.
The only reason people know that is because he keeps telling people.
Yeah. No, and my hypo is lacking tragically because, you know, Aaliyah did not make it to full adulthood in the way that I would have loved. I would have very much loved. So RIP. But yeah. I mean, look, I'm not saying he's not a grifter here. I'm just saying that there are certain things about it that I will provide deference to.
That's a very fair point, because we do want to give nuances for all of these cases that we're talking about too. And Andy, the game maker, Andy, I love you. Because he says, because someone has to defend Jack Murphy. Maybe he just wanted to grow up to be the Nirvana baby. Who let me in the chat? I don't know, Andy.
That's good. That's good, Andy.
Jack is taking it on the chin. But you guys know who, I'm assuming everybody here knows who Jack Murphy is, right? No?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Some real hits lately.
We've all been on Twitter, right? Oh my God. Oh, jeez. Oh man. So anyhow, but that's we'll see if they refile. I think they have until January 18th to refile that lawsuit.
Without prejudice. So yeah, they left up with that one. But I don't see why.
Did. And you know, and courts are like that too. Anytime somebody loses out on, you know, except for when it comes to like a statute of limitations, that's going to be generally with prejudice. But if somebody loses on a motion to dismiss because they're missing some sort of formality in their complaint, or because they've missed a deadline, generally speaking, courts are going to try to give you as many chances as they can before things start to look really unreasonable. So given that this has only been dismissed once, the court's probably going to give them, one more chance at least to file. So it's not surprising to me that this is without prejudice.
They're going to have to figure out that time bar issue, though, right? Like, then they got 5 days to figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
I've had a couple of those too. Like, this is, I've had people come to me with like, yo, I have this $2 million judgment. I'm like, yeah, when was it? 1965. I'm like, time bar. No. Why did you wait so long? I forgot about it. You forgot about it?
Clearly it was not that important to you then.
Yeah, this is something else. Too bad.
Yeah. But that'll be interesting to see if they decide to refile. And I will just say this, that when it comes to forgetting a deadline, on the one hand, I have empathy for missing a deadline. On another hand, I have a little bit less empathy for missing a deadline on a case that is very, very public and that people are going to be watching, and that is on responding to a motion to dismiss. That's kind of a big one to miss, in my opinion.
Yes, no, I agree. It is unforgivable, and if it was on the other side, I would just have a grinning smile from ear to ear. I just feel a little sad embarrassment for that person,
Yeah. I mean, I do feel some empathetic embarrassment for them on that too, because that's just not. Ooh, yeah, that is rough. To be failing on that kind of a large stage like that, right? But I will say that's a big deadline to miss.
Yeah. Yes. No, it is. Somebody got fired over that in the office.
Yeah.
Could be. And if they didn't already have the statute of limitations issue, and I mean, if the court had dismissed it with prejudice, there could have been a potential professional responsibility issue. If no successful claim, then at the very least, some other professional responsibility lawyer coming in and sniffing around to see if there was something really bad that happened here. So cool, fun times. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much to my guests for coming on. Thank you, Nate. Thank you earlier to Kurt, and thank you to Marc for coming on and hanging out and talking a bit about your game, talking about the law. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a heck of a lot of fun. And, I think when we were in LA or when we were in California at the same time, we would talk often about getting together, but we both work constantly. So we never made it happen despite. Yeah, exactly. So if I get to see you virtually now, that's, I think that's more than worth it. Thank you so much for inviting me. And, I hope that despite the chat hating me, I think they like to hate me. So I hope that oh, there we go. Boom, Marc. It's fine.
Marc, one thing you have to understand about the chat, my chat and all these chats, these are amazing people in the chat. They're gonna hate, like for me, they hate me half the time when I talk about Fauci, and they hate my guts. But as soon as I talk about U.S. soccer, Rittenhouse, they'll love me. And the one thing though is that I'll say this: when I go on liberal shows, they are so it's crazy to for me. Again, this is just my own perspective. I have no scientific study, anything like that. But I've found that the conservatives, when I go and argue with them, we'll get into fierce arguments, but we're still okay after it, right? It's like, okay, well, I disagree with you on this point, but let's move on. But when I go to liberals, like when I disagree, Nate, you're a coon. Nate, you hate black people. I'm like, how could I hate black people? What are you talking about? This is crazy. No, I just disagree with. I don't think Rittenhouse is a racist. So, but that's so the chat, even though they disagree, these people, you'll see it all the time. These are great people. So.
I appreciate you saying that. And look, yeah, it's been fantastic. And This is why we're all in the field, quite frankly, is if we all felt the same way, then there'd be no reason for us,
Yeah.
And so if we don't like talking about that and figuring out those sort of things, which let's keep the grift going is kind of what my game is about, then what are we doing?
Yes.
Yes. Exactly. That's how we have interesting conversations after all.
But you know what the rule is here? The rule is always, if you're just honest, and just take the fallout. Whatever your honest opinion is, give it and let the fallout be what it is. And then you will never have a problem. When you start trying to change your opinion to meet the chat, that's when you'll see the issues come in.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. No.
Don't worry, I don't care about you.
Yeah.
Well, hey, and thank you, Quicks DC. That was very kind of you.
Yes, Quicks DC 614 says we like you. We disagree, but we like you. So that's very good. And I would love to have you on again at some point. If you'd like, Marc. Invitation.
I'm here.
You gotta come up on March 7th. I'm doing the U.S. soccer thing because they're going to court. So we get the Ninth Circuit. Thank God for the Ninth Circuit, even though it's a liberal bastion of hell. Thank God for the Ninth Circuit because they are now live streaming all of their appeal cases, and so they have a YouTube channel. So now we get to see the U.S. women's soccer teams appeal live and hear those arguments. So you guys can. I know Alita's going to be there, but definitely please come on. It'll be fantastic. So.
Yes.
Hey, that sounds fantastic. I would love to. I think March 7th, I am at Dice Tower West Game Convention.
Cool.
So, but you know what? I would love to take some time and find a quiet corner and talk about law instead, because I will be well over talking about this game by that point.
Good luck with this game, bro. I'm definitely going to check it out because I'm always.
Yes.
I got to get Darth Crypto's game. I got to get Alita's Brothers game. Kurt's got a game coming out. I don't know what everybody's now into these games. So
yep.
It's all working from home. We're all doing our side hustles. We're all like doing the things. I've been designing this game for 6 years, and then kind of like the pandemic hit, and I was like, well. Got time. Let's finish it up.
Heck yeah. And then just a few more super chats before we head out. The John Beck says, Alita, can you say what regions those maps are? These are all old maps of Lithuania, of course. Yes, from I don't know when. But yes, I have no idea when. They probably should be in better frames than what they're in. But yes, very proud Lithuanian family, of course, as people know. I've talked about it from time to time. Britt Cormier says, Nate, you are so wrong. I hate all of LawTube all the time. None of you all are worth 10 cents. I just like throwing my money at people I hate. JK. Well, if it comes with money, I appreciate your hate, Britt. C. Neil says, hey, born and raised in Wimberley from 1959 and was a Hayes County Consolidated rebel. Andy, I'm sorry you didn't get to Buda before it wasn't fun anymore. Oh, you mean Marc.
Marc.
Yep.
Yep. I know Buda is it's a little different now. But my kids can walk to school, so it's kind of fun. But yes, Wimberley is fantastic. Wimberley, oh my goodness! If you can still afford a home in Wimberley after the last 2 years, congratulations on you. But it was a wonderful haven with like no Wi-Fi, just nothing out there in the sticks, and then tech started coming and finding the sticks. So Wimberley is gorgeous. I love it.
Oh, nice. The John Beck also says, bougie frames are excessive. Physical games making a comeback, much more fun with friends than video games. I just found out about Splendor. Splendor's a very fun game. Yeah. I like that one. I have it also. Yes. There you go. That's one of my favorites. So anyway, okay, well, that just about does it. This has been wonderful. And thank you to my guests. Thank you to the chat. And I will see you guys in the next video. See ya.